All right. Good morning, folks. You're listening to CFRC 101.9 FM. This is it. Indie Wake Up Call, the best show in town. And folks, I'm your host, Nick Vassos, but I'm not alone. All right. Joining me on the show today, we have a very, and let me say that again, a very special guest. Coming off of the release of her latest album, Homemaker, and now playing a show at the Isabel Bader Center on the 14th of May. Folks, Juno Award nominee, singer, songwriter Jill Barber is joining me on the show. Jill, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. I have incredibly fond memories of the CFRC station. I spent a lot of time there back when I was a student at Queens, and long live campus and community radio.
Amazing. I'm happy to do it. I'm really excited for today, in part because I've never actually interviewed someone in the folk and jazz spaces before. So I think this will be really interesting for me and for you guys at home. So yeah, I say we just jump into it. Why don't we start, I guess, there with the music itself? I'd imagine a lot of listeners at home would know you best for like your jazzier compositions, but thinking about your newest album, Homemaker, in a sense, you return to, your folk roots and like approach to songwriting that got you started in the first place. So I wanted to hear about that, like how you feel now knowing that you're back into this folk sound.
I feel great. It's true that I've dabbled in different musical genres over the course of a couple of decades now that I've been making music and performing and touring. And yeah, I've dipped my toes into the jazz world, pop a little bit. But at the heart of what I do, like I'm a singer songwriter. I started writing songs on an acoustic guitar when I was 14 years old, and I like to think I have kind of like I have the spirit of an indie rock band, but sure, definitely the sound of more of a a folk singer, especially these days.
Hmm. Yeah, this is, I guess that's a good transition then into talking about your songwriting process for a moment. Like, I'm thinking about this new record once again. A lot of the instrumentals there, for lack of a better word, breathe a lot and like give space for the vocals and lyrics to really be at the forefront of each track. So I want to hear about like how you begin writing a song. Does it start with the lyrics? Does it start with the instrumentals? Like, walk me through that process.
Yeah, it starts with an idea. It starts with a feeling, I suppose. Something I want to get off my chest, or kind of, I don't know, just like explore more, like a creative idea. And then I start like strumming a few chords, and I kind of just start singing like random stream of consciousness words,
Hmm.
really, and
Sort
kind
of
of.
see what comes of it.
Yeah. So whenever I've been asked that question in the past, like it all kind of happens at once for me. It's not like I'm not one of those people that like sits and writes poetry and then later puts it to music, or vice versa. I'm like, it's all kind of just happens at the same time. I kind of get into a space where I feel kind of open and experimental, and I'll just start singing whatever comes to the top of my mind and strum away. And then if I kind of like stumble on a little idea that sounds good or feels good, I just kind of play with that for a few minutes and then see what direction that points me in. It's kind of it's a very experimental process, and sometimes you get a finished great song out of it, and sometimes you just spent a meditative, I don't know, hour or two just kind of strumming away and letting your mind
Hmm.
wander.
I'm sure you've heard this before, but I'll say it anyway. To me, it feels like with each new project, you reinvent yourself in a new way. And your use of language is a shining example of that. You've done albums both in English and in French. So I wonder, is the songwriting process or relationship to the music affected at all when the language changes? Like, what does that look like?
Yes, it definitely is. I actually kind of feel like I have a slightly different persona in when I'm writing or singing in French.
Hmm.
There's
Okay.
something about communicating in French that something in me shifts a little bit. It's like it's just another side of me. I mean, it's still me, but it's like it's a little bit more like romantic, sensual, playful. Like it's a French. It's just more like there's more of a French spirit that comes out in me when I write in French. But I have to
For
say, with
sure.
this most recent album, which is a very, personal album that digs into my home life, my domestic life, my life as a mother, my life as a partner, like a wife, and a woman who's in now my early 40s. Like I'm want to talk about my domestic life, like the less sexy romantic parts
Hmm.
of my life, like the nitty gritty of my day to day life. And I really needed to write that in English, because that's my first language, my mother tongue, if you will. And like and I love that you said earlier that you can really hear the space, because on this record, I really did want to just deliver a message, and not get it too like caught up in the bells and whistles of like fancy production, but just like I wanted the listener to have the sensation that they were kind of like being invited over into my home, into my living room, and like I was sharing an intimate thoughts with a friend.
Right.
That's what I was going for on this. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess actually that kind of to a degree answers my next question. I was going to ask broadly, like what this album means to you, or like what you were hoping for the listener to get out of listening to these songs. But I think you've kind of touched on that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add with that.
Well, the only thing I'll add is that I think with this album, I needed to kind of reconcile um, my professional and my personal life a little bit, because everything kind of came crashing together, or crashed. Like my professional life took a like a real halt when we had that whole global pandemic thing, and I
Right.
suddenly was off the road, and I was home with my family, and I was just kind of like,
All over
my
the
God.
place and just, yeah.
Yeah, like it was. I had a bit of an identity crisis, because I was like, if I'm not a touring musician, who am I anymore? What do I like? What?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I do think I wrote this album first and foremost for myself to be brave and talk about as I say, like to talk about the less fun aspects of my life in my music, and in the hopes that it would resonate with other people. Like I know there are other people out there like me, and other people that um, felt or do feel conflicted about their lives, conflicted about where they've landed. Is life everything they wanted it to be? Like that kind of stuff. I wanted, of course, I'm always writing songs hoping that they resonate with other people, and that I can connect to other people through what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can sympathize with that story. Being lost during COVID, like being taken away from work or things that bring you purpose and happiness. I'm in that boat for sure. So I imagine a lot of people can see where you're coming from there. That's a good segue actually into talking about what it's like to now be able to tour again. How do you feel reconnecting with your audience after all of this has happened?
I mean, I love to tour. I love to be on stage. I love to play my songs, share them for other people. It's like, dating back to when I lived in Kingston, when I was a student at Queen's, and that's really where I got my feet wet, playing in front of people at like coffee houses and open mic nights. That's when I fell in love with live performance and the power of a song to connect me to other people. Like I studied philosophy when I was at Queen's, and I spent a lot a lot of time wondering what the hell I was doing and what the point was.
That's the
Um,
homework. Yeah, that's the degree.
yeah, and that's the thing, is like I got a major in philosophy, but a minor in kind of just like realizing that my pursuit of happiness was to be found through connecting with other people through music. And so that
Hmm.
was kind of why I spent 4 years as a student, really just like cementing my love of live music, and my desire to make my music my life. And yeah, I think you were saying, like, is it nice to be back playing
Yeah,
for live
basically.
music? Yes, it is. It's really, it's everything to me. It's like it's what motivates me to do all the other stuff, like all the nitty gritty aspects of having a career in the music industry that I don't love. Like it's all in service of getting onto the stage and connecting with an audience through music. That's what drives me. So yes,
For
I'm
sure.
very happy to be back in front of live human beings again.
For sure. Why don't we talk about the specific show in Kingston? We could end it off here. You've been doing shows all across Canada recently, and the end of this tour brings you right here to Kingston at the Isabel Bader Center. So, generally speaking, what can listeners expect from coming to this final show?
Well, I'll be there with two incredible musicians, bass player Brian Kobayakawa and an incredible guitar player named Dean Driard. And the three of us are presenting this kind of tight trio, acoustic trio. We are going to be performing songs off the new album and talking a lot about what you and I have been discussing, Nick, like, I don't know, the existential crisis of life, just the existential crisis that probably many of us feel. So, we're going to go deep on some songs probably in the first half of the show. And then in the second half, I'm going to do kind of like a quote, air quotes around this, but like the greatest hits, my greatest hits.
Nice.
Because I do have a handful of records, and I play some old favorites that people like to hear. And then the extra special thing is that it does happen to fall on Mother's Day. Not to say that, it's not going to be a Mother's Day themed show necessarily, but I think we might, I think it'll have kind of a special, I'm certainly encouraging folks to either bring their mom if they have a mom around Kingston that they want to take to the show. I think I can deliver a really nice show for mom, and it's a great Mother's Day gift. Or maybe you're a mother yourself, or maybe you are missing your mom and you want to come and, like, I don't know, whatever.
Everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome.
Absolutely, everyone is welcome. I've got something for everyone here, and it's just it's gonna be warm. It's gonna be intimate. Like I said, I want people to feel like they're kind of being invited into to a really intimate setting, and I think it's gonna feel good. I'm looking forward to it, and I love Kingston so much because, as I said, it's kind of where I got started in music, so it always feels like a bit of a homecoming for me.
That's great. Yeah, finally, Jill, before we wrap up, I'll give you the floor, I guess, one more time just to plug any social media accounts you may have or announcements, anything else you'd like to say, frankly. The floor is yours.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I'm on social media. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I'm north of 40. If your listeners have any tips for me on how to make the most of my TikTok, that would be really appreciated. I am on there. I think Jill Barber Music is my account, or just Jill Barber on Instagram. But to hell with all of that. Just come and say hi to me in person at the Isabel Bader.
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with social media, and in fact, I have a song about it that I'm going to be playing on Sunday. So it's called "Beautiful
Nice.
Life." And the point of that song is that it's not a pretty picture that makes for a beautiful life. It's all the messy chaos in between. So come and get messy with me. And but yeah, sure, follow me on Instagram too. That'd be great.
Amazing. You heard it here first, folks. That's been me, Nick Vassos, and Jill Barber right here on Indie Wake Up Call. Again, you can stream her new record, Homemaker, anywhere you get your music. As well, you can see her at the Isabel on the 14th. Jill, best of luck on tour, and thank you so much once again for coming on the show.
Lovely to chat with you today, Nick. Thanks for having me.